in their cars. We'll have more from Oregon in a few minutes. And this was the scene in Sioux City, South Dakota. Thank you. Right now on the National Weather Desk, winter returns. From coast to coast, snow and ice take their toll.
There are people sleeping in their vehicles here.
There's even a school minibus that got stopped.
The snow's been falling all night long and into the morning.
We have team coverage of this impactful storm, plus record heat. The cities that could break records today also remove carbon dioxide from our air.
Even if we stop all emissions, the problem doesn't go away. The climate change will still be there, it just won't be getting worse.
And we'll meet the next generation of storm chasers
that are already starting to produce lightning.
Look at the motion up there in the clouds.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. A major winter storm is taking a toll on millions of Americans from coast to coast this morning. Snow, ice, and even a blizzard warning in Southern California. We have teams across the country to show you what's happening, but we begin in Michigan, where more than 725,000 people woke up with no lights. The power is out after ice and strong winds knocked down trees and power lines. And in northern Michigan, heavy snow and winds is making it very hard to see on the roads. Now let's move to Portland, Oregon, that was hit with an unexpected storm last night. More than 10 inches of snow on the ground by the end of the day, which was a record. Drivers, as you can see, there were stuck on highways overnight. Many slept in their cars. We'll have more from Oregon in just a few minutes. And this was the scene in Sioux City, South Dakota. Complete whiteout conditions. A blizzard warning is still in effect today with up to 17 inches of snow expected. State offices are closed until noon. Officials are warning drivers to stay off the road and only travel for an emergency. And in Southern California, sleet in Pasadena. Now this is unusual. And to the west, a rare blizzard warning for the mountains of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. There's certainly plenty to talk about here this morning. Meteorologist Brian Vandergraff is tracking the storm for us this morning.
Yeah, and that is crazy, Angela. We talk about blizzard warnings. LA County as well as Ventura, they could see some snow in those higher peaks in the feet, believe it or not. But winter storm warnings all the way up the western coast. But the big storm that we've been tracking the last couple of days is what's here across the northern tier. Minneapolis under blizzard warnings, portions of the Dakotas as well. Heavy snow mixing with ice, as we saw in the UP of Michigan. And those winter storm warnings extend all the way into the northeast, where they're seeing snow in Burlington, Vermont to Portland, Oregon. You look at the satellite and radar picture this morning, this system right here, this one system encompassing over 1,600 miles from Montana all the way east to Maine. At least it's going to let up in the next day or so. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Brian. And we want to now turn to our team of reporters and really meteorologists across the country as they track the storm where they live. Let's start in Oregon, where the storm left many people stranded on the highways.
There are big pockets of vehicles that are stranded on Highway 26 that are making it very difficult to get through. Maybe one lane, a half lane that's passable, but people are very slowly getting through there and getting back into the city. And then you can see there is movement, so I want to bring you on over here before we get to the other side. There are people sleeping in their vehicles here, so some people were able to get off the highway, pull over to a safe spot.
You can see right here there's a mail truck. Usually rain or shine, they're able to make it, but it looks like the snow is enough to stop this one. And then up the street on Sandy, you can see a couple TriMet buses that are also stopped. That one looks like it's almost about to hit that power line. Then up further down Sandy, you can see there's even a school minibus that got stopped that's stranded right there. It's just, you can see how much snow there is on all of these cars.
Good morning. We're here in Naples, Maine on Long Lake. The snow's been falling all night long and into the morning. You can see the pretty low visibility. The snow is light and fluffy, so it looks like it's blowing around a lot, but it's just not that windy right now. It's a little chilly, though. Temperatures around the low 20s, and the roads. We talked to some plow drivers. They said it's really easy to push around because it's so light and fluffy, but it's nice and easy for us to push this snow around. But you can see here as I toss it into Long Lake, nice and fluffy and light. It's not good for the kids on February vacation who want to have a snowball fight, but a lot of the mountains are excited around here. We've gotten around 6 inches so far, and it's going to be a little bit of a lull into the afternoon here in Maine, but then later on Thursday night into Friday, that's when it'll pick back up.
Wind chill warnings and advisories are in place here in southwest Montana and across the state. Wind chills 10 to 30 degrees below zero are a common sight and will continue for the next 2 days. The western part of the state could see gusts up to 35 miles per hour. Drivers may still come across patches of ice on roadways. And with the extreme weather conditions, multiple ski resorts are closing or delayed opening. Avalanche warnings remain in effect in southwest Montana mountain ranges and other areas across the state.
Well, travel on Indiana highways was also treacherous as ice and snow fell yesterday. Ice-coated trees and power lines and left many roads slick as well. Highs will be in the 50s today, so all of that ice will probably melt. And if you're flying today, you should be prepared for the unexpected. Nearly 1,500 flights have already been canceled in the U.S. today. More than 800 more are delayed. The biggest problems are in Minneapolis, Portland, Oregon, and also in Boston. In and around Salt Lake City, Utah, the drifting snow and wind was so bad, plow trucks were getting stuck. It left many families without a way to get out of their driveways and with buried cars. A reporter spoke to folks who were out there.
I'm glad I have four-wheel drive, that's for sure.
There was a snowplow that was trying to start to clear the street and it was stuck. My backyard has like 6-foot drifts in it right now, so the barbecue is probably shut down until, I don't know, maybe July.
Draper City's Public Works had to use a special snow blower to help get those plows out of all of that snow. It also snowed in Washington State on Wednesday, but the bigger story is the bitter cold. Today could be one of the coldest days of the year in western Washington. Wind gusts of 45 miles an hour will make it feel even colder. And in California, some residents had to grapple with grapple. It's not the same as snow or hail. So let's find out exactly what it is.
Communities across Fresno County and the Valley have been reporting grapple. But what exactly is the white substance similar to that of hail and snow? According to the National Weather Service Hanford, grapple is soft in texture and is considered light ice packed together. It is similar in appearance to hail, or in some instances, snow flurries. Frozen precipitation or rain is not soft hail, as some would describe grapple. The reason? It does not tend to stick around long enough on the valley floor because the ground is not cold enough, whereas hail is more icy than soft in texture. Hail is considered hard and a more solid frozen precipitation. Lastly, snow is more dense and solid, not quite as hard. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service say snow is a bit fluffier than hail, describing snow when it falls to the ground as light, tending to drift down to the ground. In the end, there are varying degrees of frozen precipitation, beginning with grapple, hail, and snow.
And if you like learning about weather phenomena like this, head over to our social media accounts where we have a ton of explainers like the one you just heard. Just search the National Weather Desk on your favorite social media platforms or scan the QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen. It's not just the winter weather that is making headlines across the country. Parts of the mid-Atlantic and the South are going to see record-setting heat today. 80 cities could break records for heat today, so let's take a closer look at a few of those cities. We're going to start right here in D.C., where right now the forecast is calling for a high of 81 degrees. Now, that's not going to beat the record of 84 degrees from 1930, but it's going to come very close. And although Cincinnati, Ohio is not far from where some snow has been falling, they could see record temperatures today. The current February record is 72 degrees set back in 1996. Today, the forecast is calling for a high of 73. And in Danville, Virginia, their 1943 record of 74 degrees could be shattered today with the forecast calling for a high of 81 degrees. And then there could be a tie, really, in Macon, Georgia, where the current record was set in 1989 at 85 degrees. The projected high for today also is at 85 degrees. And now a bit of news from NASA. They sent new technology called Emmett into space to study dust storms here on Earth. It's attached to the International Space Station. NASA says the device orbits the Earth 16 times a day, basically tracking dust. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at an ambulance. We'll talk with an ambulance survivor about how you can stay safe next time you hit the ski slopes. Plus, we'll talk with a group of aspiring storm chasers.
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Most of the Northeast is dealing with some snow, mix, and rain during the morning hours today. There'll be a defined break. The active pattern continues with another round moving through during the nighttime hours tonight. Most snow will be in northern New England, more mix and rain in southern parts of New England. Notice the wide range in temperatures as well. Now, Friday will feature improvement, but it's going to get colder. It's going to get windy. Saturday will feature more clouds than sun. Temps will stay on the cold side with highs in the teens and 20s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region, starting off with some clouds, maybe even a leftover sprinkle or two through the early morning commute as our latest weather maker continues to pull on through. Sunshine comes back for the afternoon, and we could be seeing some record warmth moving in. 78 degrees in Baltimore, will be at 84 at Richmond, like summertime. 75 up at Cumberland and even west of the Appalachians in the 70s. A cool down on the way for the weekend. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. A warm wind in Raleigh at 83 degrees, 81 Birmingham, 85 in Tupelo. Tampa about 85 degrees. Looking at high pressure over South Florida, that's going to keep us nice and dry down there. But as we look at a front that's draped across parts of the South from Louisiana up through the Carolinas, few spotty showers through Thursday morning into the afternoon. Then late day, there could be a few pop-up showers over Mississippi near Jackson, more clearing towards the north portions of the Carolinas.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
An ice storm in the Kalamazoo, Michigan area saddled trees Wednesday afternoon. Snap. It also left behind temporary sheets on windows. and tents. This storm knocked out power to many. Temperatures are expected to warm up Thursday before snapping into the 20s Thursday night and Friday. Hopefully the warmth is long enough to get these birdies easier access to this feeder.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
As the realities of climate change are being felt around the world, scientists are hard at work finding ways to not only cut emissions, but to remove carbon dioxide that's already in the air. Emily Gracie spoke to one of these scientists to find out how solar geoengineering could return our atmosphere to pre-industrial revolution levels.
One of the maybe most important single things to know about climate change is that the amount of climate change, the amount of warming that we have at any time is more or less proportional to the cumulative emissions of carbon dioxide over all history. Even if we stop all emissions, the problem doesn't go away. The climate change will still be there, it just won't be getting worse.
So explain the term geoengineering.
So one is removing carbon from the atmosphere, which might be done by planting trees or putting alkaline into the ocean or taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. There's a bunch of ideas, but they're all this idea of carbon removal. And then there's a second set of ideas called solar radiation modification or sunlight reflection methods or solar geoengineering, but they're all ideas of somehow altering the radiative balance of the Earth deliberately to reduce some of the harms of climate change. There are really sort of four big picture things we do about climate. We cut emissions, we could remove carbon from the atmosphere, we could do this solar geoengineering, and we can do local measures to adapt to climate change.
Tell me about carbon capture in different ways that happens.
One is increasing the biological stock of carbon, say by changing the way we farm to have more carbon go into soils or by having more carbon in forests. And then there's ways that we might try and more permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere, kind of undoing what happens when we burn fossil fuels. We can reverse that by capturing it and putting it back deep underground, or by neutralizing it in the oceans.
Is there a way to use carbon to our advantage?
One thing we could do is take solar power where it's really cheap, say like these big installations in Arizona or in, the very sunniest places in the world, and make it into fuel. So you do that by first making hydrogen and then taking CO2 from the atmosphere, and then surprisingly going CO2 plus hydrogen to make regular hydrocarbon fuels compatible with gasoline. Is not that hard. It's basically been done commercially.
Meanwhile, this week's massive winter storm is elevating avalanche danger across Utah. The Utah Avalanche Center is warning folks who enjoy backcountry skiing to be extra careful. Lincoln Gray spoke to someone who knows why from personal experience.
If you listen to anyone's advice on avalanche danger, listen to Travis Hausner.
I was caught, carried, buried up to my chest.
The backcountry skier was swept up in an avalanche in December and seriously injured. The recovery is still ongoing.
My bone in my leg is just not fusing like the doctors want it to. So that might mean more surgery, or it might just mean it's going to take a little longer.
Travis won't be in the backcountry anytime soon, but he's well aware of our current winter storm and the increasing avalanche danger. The Utah Avalanche Center is spreading the word. It's dangerous in Utah's mountains over the next few days.
The next few days aren't going to be those days to go into those big objectives, those big lines. It's time to take a step back, shift our mindset for a couple days, and wait to see what this new snow does.
Take it from Travis.
I think everyone has the same mindset I had, where it's not going to happen to me, right?
He mostly blames bad luck, but also admits he ended up in a place where he shouldn't have been.
I just pushed it just a tad too much, which, like I said, there's a fine line between, what can go right and what can go wrong. And I pushed it and I found out what could go wrong.
He hopes others avoid the same type of mistake, whatever their circumstances. Know the conditions and know the warnings.
With that knowledge, make sure you make your decisions based on that. Like, is this going to be the last time I ski ever? Because then that might, change what you're planning on doing.
An overall milder winter across the eastern U.S. has left the Great Lakes far from frozen over. This means communities along the shoreline may be vulnerable to hazardous winter weather. Meteorologist Marshall McPeak explains.
We have something interesting happening across the Great Lakes, and our friends at the Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab have been tracking it all year long. In fact, for the last 44 years, they've been tracking how much ice covers the Great Lakes. And this year, we have record low ice cover across all 5 lakes. And that's because we've had plenty of warm air, at least at times, across the region. It's caused by oscillations in the Atlantic and the Pacific. There's also La Nina and El Nino that have an effect on all of that. But the bottom line is there's almost no ice on Lake Superior. You see some of the red down there on the South Shore. Some of the ice that does form has blown down to the South Shore at this point. Very little ice on Lake Michigan or Lake Huron, and almost nothing on Lake Erie or Lake Ontario. So the average amount of ice has actually dropped by 70% over the last 44 years. So it is dramatically different from where we were just a few years ago, and it keeps the lake effect snow machine going, which means anytime we get a good breeze coming out of the northwest, you're going to find all those usual spots with lake effect snow getting some really heavy snow there. But until we get ice across the lakes, that doesn't get shut off. We'll keep watching it for the rest of the season.
Storm chasers race into danger all to gather information to help us better understand the weather. But what exactly do they do? To find out, meteorologist Ed Russo met up with a group of students studying to become the next generation of storm chasers.
The United States, in any given year, is home to more tornadoes than any other country in the world. About 1,300 tornadoes scar the landscape every year.
These renegades that are already starting to produce lightning southwest of Tyler.
It's no surprise that storm chasing is a way of life for many researchers and storm enthusiasts, especially across the central U.S.
Look at the motion up there in the clouds.
Past like 5-6 decades now, the number of tornadoes in the Northeast, especially in Pennsylvania alone, has been going up.
That's the tornado right there.
Also, in this day and age of cell phones and everybody's everywhere, everybody's chasing, everybody's going to catch something nowadays. So there's always going to be able to be someone confirming a tornado compared to the 1950s where it was just damage reports.
All these student researchers need now is another event, another tornado, and one that they can intercept and sample data.
Obviously, we're going to be doing balloon launches, and that's going to be how we're going to sample our far field and near field. So the far field is out well away from the storm. You're just getting the environment outside of the storm. The near field is going to be sampling really close to the storm.
And not just close, but inside. These Millersville students built this very drone and probe to do just that. Now all they have to do is chase and get to their final destination, a tornado.
We have a target date in early to mid-May to really get out to the Great Plains, stay out there for about 2 weeks and get as much data as we can in the Great Plains. And then the rest of the time, whether before or after that, we'll be out here in the Northeast just getting in everything we can.
And as we head to break, we head to the skies over Green Bay.
Well, a very good Thursday morning, everyone. As you're heading out the door today, we're going to be dealing with some snow across the plains here. The northern plains, Minnesota getting hammered. Same with northern Wisconsin. Really warm across the Ohio Valley. We got some 70s across Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. Tomorrow, though, things are going to cool down for a lot of us. The snow kind of backs off a little bit across the Minnesota, but still some. And a little bit of snow in the Great Lakes on Saturday with temperatures trying to warm up for all of us in the Midwest.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. Things are a little bit toasty early this morning. Lots of clouds moving through the area from South Texas all the way back up into Houston. Cooler as you get from Dallas back up into Oklahoma City and back over toward El Paso. Another cold front drops down to the south. It brings cooler air to the north, but it really helps heat things up down toward the south as temperatures once again heat up into the 80s and 70s. We'll see 30s and 40s up to the north. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there and a good Thursday morning to you, everybody. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. All of that heat out east balanced by the coldest air of 2023 in many cases out west, including in Missoula with a high of just 9 today. Portland maxing out around freezing with fresh snow on the ground up and down the I-5 corridor between Seattle and Portland. You can see the snow showers continuing to wind around through the Intermountain West, including the Rockies outside of Salt Lake City today. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Beads and parades weren't the only things visible earlier this week on Fat Tuesday. Meteorologist Alan Sills explains what was spotted over the bay waters.
Mobile Bay on a Fat Tuesday afternoon. A cloud on the ground. We call it fog. Technically, it's on the water, but it's still fog, and in the fog is a bow, which is known as a fog bow. It is the cousin of a rainbow, something that happens pretty frequently, but most people don't notice because it doesn't stand out the way a rainbow stands out. You may know to get a rainbow, you have the sun behind you in the direction of your shadow. If it's raining, you can see an arc of color, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But when you have the sun behind you and a bank of fog in front of you, because the fog particles are so small, you don't see a lot of color. You just see a white arc or a white bow known as a fog bow. And that's exactly what it was. Not unusual, but just like a rainbow, you can see them early in the morning or late in the afternoon. You just have to look when it's foggy but sunny at the same time. I'm meteorologist Alan Sills.
And thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at how warmer winters are impacting food crops. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Thursday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.